Hi everyone, Jen Johnson here with innerworkcoaching.life. Welcome if you're new, welcome back if you're familiar. If you're watching this on YouTube, then welcome to YouTube. And if you're watching this on Facebook, hello. This might also be a podcast episode, so hello in podcast land. Today, I've been kind of thinking about doing this video on are you a radiator or a drain? Because this is one of those things that we can choose for ourselves, right? Via our consciousness. And that's how we start to affect change in our external experience, right? Because consciousness creates reality. Quantum physics tells us this. So when I interact with people or with myself or even with my environment, I try to keep in mind that I only get what I give, right? And there are some aspects that are completely off balance still, but there are other aspects where I feel like, okay, all right, I have my footing here now, you know? And so some of the things to take into consideration are on an emotional level, especially because that's where everything comes from, right? That's how everything is co-created in our reality, is via our emotional state. So it isn't even that accurate to say radiator versus drain. It's more accurate to think of it like optimist versus pessimist, kind of, you know. Whatever it is that you're contributing energetically will influence the way things play out over time, right? The way things manifest themselves. And so if we find ourselves in an energy of fear or worry or stress or frustration or anger, then a lot of times that energy will help attract more things to make us feel more that way. But it's not just the attraction of it, see, it's the focus on it that makes it seem so big. And so it's more of a question of what are you radiating, I guess. Are you radiating fear energy and draining love energy? Or are you radiating love energy to dispel fear energy? And even if you're not in an environment where you're dealing with people all the time, this can be a really, really helpful practice just to attract more positive experiences to yourself, you know? Staying open. Staying open despite the possibility of getting hurt, you know? Pain is part of the process. It will be okay. But really making it a point to be aware of what you're contributing, right? What are you putting into your life? Is it something that's going to make your life grow and expand and evolve? Or are you putting most of your energy into dead end stuff or into fearful stuff, into efforting, into struggling, you know? That emotional energy that we carry, that's what it's all about, you know? People on the surface can look like radiators and actually be drains and vice versa, you know? It's difficult to tell on the surface. So we are dealing with the unseen. We are dealing with the emotions. And the more that we as an individual, as individuals, start to tap into what's really going on in our systems and figuring that out and figuring out how to um, utilize our emotions as fuel rather than allowing them to run us and drain us, right? That helps us to, I talk a lot about filling your own cup, that helps us to fill our cup and then overflow rather than having to hold out an empty cup everywhere because we're so drained because we don't know how to fill our own cup and love ourselves. So that's kind of what I'm talking about when I talk about the cup thing, cup of happiness, cup of love, self-care, emotional self-care. And I'll make that reference probably a lot because that's one of the things. I actually first made that reference in my book, 10 Pillars of a Happy Relationship. God, that was like a decade ago. Good Lord. Anyway, I don't even know if it was that long ago, but it seems like forever. Anyway, those are some things to take into consideration when you're kind of living your moment to moment life. Think about what you're contributing to your own life. Like you are the common denominator in all of your experiences, right? So, like for me, it has always felt like there have been more bad experiences than good because the bad ones were so like extreme, you know? But when I decided to shift my focus to the better experiences and think about those instead, then it attracts more better experiences, first of all. And second of all, it helps with a lot of the whole process of making peace within yourself and allowing yourself to process the emotions that are there, you know? Um, when we clear out our own system, when we clear out our own toxicity, that's when we can really become radiant and really contribute a lot of love to the world, you know? Um, there are, of course, other ways and other levels of radiation versus draining, but that's the one that I kind of wanted to focus on today. And I hope that this resonates with you guys. Again, it all comes back to love. If you tap into love, then you radiate love. If you tap into fear, you radiate fear, or drain love from other people because you can't figure out how to love yourself. And that brings on those codependent, desperate feelings and those lonely feelings like you need someone else there to help you, to save you. It's not up to anyone else. It's only up to us as individuals, and it is doable. You can become your own best friend, learn, grow, and it doesn't mean that you stop caring about other people. In fact, the opposite is true because it's not a selfish kind of self love. When you're doing this inner work of forgiveness and compassion and understanding and non reactivity and non judgment, these are all unconditional ideas, right? These are all ideas that help us build our soul's strength. And it doesn't matter that society conditions us to believe that emotions are weak or not important or whatever, right? They can be uncomfortable sometimes. I don't watch very much TV, but there's a couple of things that I'll watch a little bit of when I walk by and catch snippets, and some things I'll even stand there the whole time and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is fantastic." But um there was something about oh, what was it? Oh my goodness, it was too funny. Anyway, we'll see. So we choose ultimately. And the more we can work through our junk, our own stuff, and stop projecting it out there, because we naturally do that as human beings, okay? And this is the programming working with what we do and how we think and what we think is logical, even if it's not, because we don't question ourselves, enough, or at least some people don't. Some of us question ourselves way too much. You got to strike a balance within yourself. And when you can kind of stay tapped into that unconditional love, that place where you understand what goes on underneath to a point, maybe not everything, you don't have to understand everything. You have to understand enough to make other people understandable to you, to make compassion easier, because a lot of us will sit there and make snap judgments about other people without even realizing we're doing it. How many people judge homeless people? Guess what? Technically, I'm homeless, guys. So, it's, we can't judge. All any of us want is to feel loved and accepted. In order to attract that into our experience, we have to feel loved and accepted by ourselves, right? And this translates into more love and acceptance for other people, because the more we look at some of the mistakes that we've made and make peace with them and say, I had my reasons. It was dumb, but I had my reasons, and let's not do that again, and let's move forward. It makes things way less traumatic, when we practice understanding ourselves and others. Then we can also understand our lives in the moment and in the bigger picture. And then in turn, that helps us to understand the collective and the really big picture more easily anyway, you know? So all that to say, we get what we give. If we want acceptance and love, we have to give it to ourselves first and then to others. And then it comes back. It comes back and it just flows, you get into this place where you're just kind of, everything is balancing itself out, and it will continue to do so. Takes time for manifestation to play out linearly, but it always plays out, and sometimes it plays out really fast. It all depends on what your beliefs are. I believe that when we can learn how to manage ourselves, manage our emotional state, especially, then we can also learn to understand other people's emotional state. And we can remember that everyone else's lives are just as complex as ours. Everybody's got a lot of shit going on. Nobody is as 2D as we like to think of them just looking at them walking around. We are complex systems combined within complex systems, connected within complex systems. It's not simple. It's all gray areas. And you got to figure out which gray areas are yours. It's like I have to figure out which gray areas are mine and who I share those gray areas with, And it's not evil to want to be yourself or be accepted and loved for who you are. But we've been taught that we have to be perfect, that's what we're striving for. And that's impossible to achieve. So we're left running in circles, driving ourselves crazy. I want to stop that. It's not fun anymore, right? So I decided to do what I could to stop that. And, again, everything is a work in progress. You work toward what you're trying to achieve. You work toward the goals that you have. You work toward the life that you would like to have, the experience that you would like to have, right? And as we work toward all these things in our daily lives, the progress can feel really, really slow, you know, on a day-to-day basis. However, when you take a look at the bigger picture and the overall progress and how much has been accomplished, it kind of gives you more perspective, you know, because then all of a sudden you're like, holy crap, you know, look what I created over the course of a year, for example. I have a really hard time finishing things sometimes. That was a real problem for me in the past. I can't even tell you how many stories I started writing as a kid and never finished. They're just sitting there, you know? Now, I make it a point to finish whatever I'm doing. I make it a point to kind of try and focus on one thing at a time because it takes time to tap into that and to shift your focus, you know? So, in order to get the best possible work out of myself, I have to be laser focused. Usually one thing at a time. Usually, if I need an outlet, I'll do something creative on top of it, something like music. And that way I don't have to jump back and forth because that is the curse of multitasking. They've found out now that it doesn't work. It doesn't actually work to get more work done. It's better to focus on one thing at a time. And then you can tap into your inspiration no matter what you're doing rather than jumping around from one thing to the other. It makes work a little easier, effortless, you know? You only get what you give. And that kind of plays into the golden rule also. When we're aware of how our interactions with everything might affect that everything, when we're aware, when we become aware, then we can change our actions and our behaviors, you know? Um, there are consequences to the things that we do. There are damages that occur, and we have to choose to either heal them and focus on healing them or on healing ourselves and getting some distance, you know? And that's okay either way. It depends on what's best for you, and you're the only person who can determine that. You're the only person who can determine what kind of ripples you send out. You're the only person who can decide how you want to treat other people and yourself and your life. Do you want to treat it like it's some tedious chore? You want to treat other people like they can't do anything right? Or do you want to treat life like it's a magical journey and people like they are magic, like reflections of yourself, you know, reflections of what we need to learn, what we need to learn about ourselves, because consciousness creates reality, you know? Anything quote unquote bad that is happening can probably be traced back to some feeling that you hold toward yourself or something in your experience or something about yourself. It can usually be traced back to that. And while it can be a little frustrating when you can see these things and people around you don't, or refuse, or are having a hard time, maybe, whatever the case might be, that's why we practice compassion. And that's why we practice letting go of the need for control, because everybody's on their own journey, right? See, when you choose to tap into love and then radiate love, things become way less complicated all of a sudden. It feels like all of a sudden, yeah. Because then you don't take anything personally anymore, and you're just kind of like, you know what, I'm going to be the example, I'm going to be the change. And you learn to not allow the emotions and behaviors of others to horribly affect you. You don't take it on as your own. You don't take it on as personal, you know? Um, you can choose. You can choose to empathize and understand, you know, but you also have to recognize what is within your control and what is not. And when we start to really do this kind of work, there's whole new dimensions that open up, like dimensions of thought, ways of thinking of things that you've never thought of things in that way before, you know? Ways of looking at things. You gain angles. You gain multiple angles. And this makes everything clearer, a little brighter, less stressful. We can also choose whether we learn through pain and suffering or whether we learn through joy and happiness and fun. And these are all components of shifting, you know, these are all components from shifting your consciousness. You're the only person who can shift your own consciousness. We can see in very, very big ways right now the split, the division, the duality between people, between one side who thinks in black and white and right and wrong, and that this is the way it should be, and then another side who has a completely different perspective, and then everyone in between. And the fear mongering, the taking the nation hostage, taking people's pay hostage, it's all very, very manipulative. It's all very, very forceful. It's all very controlling, and it's all very dictatorial. Very dictatorial. This is the type of thinking that I grew up in, okay? Because I guarantee you that to him, this all makes perfect sense. One of the things my mom told me as my parents were making us homeless was that everything I'm doing is perfectly logical in response to what you are doing, blaming it on me, right? Now, I've been racking my brain for the last year, over a year, trying to figure out what I did that was so horrible that they pulled the rug out from under me, knowing my situation, knowing I had 3 kids by myself, knowing my ex-husband was abusive as fuck and can't even come near us, knowing all of this, you know, knowing that I don't settle for relationships just to have somebody pay my bills. That's fucked up, you know? I'm not going to go and be in an abusive environment just to have the 3D shit taken care of. And this is essentially the type of force and control and manipulation that is used by cult leaders. You know, it's a little scary. Now, this is another place where we can choose to be amused rather than annoyed, which is something that I talked about in my last video. And stop sending it fearful energy. Stop sending it any energy at all. If there's something you don't like, refuse to participate. Remove your participation energetically, emotionally, physically, on all levels. Remove your participation. Take the momentum that you have given into that thing back out of it. You can do that. We can all do that. We can become triggerless. You know, this whole situation going on, it's going to play out. It'll play out, and we will all be way, way wiser for it. In order to avoid the extremes happening this way, though, we have to start to tune in and listen to ourselves, to our true beliefs, our core beliefs, not the bullshit we've been brainwashed with, not the impression that every single immigrant is a rapist and a murderer and a drug dealer, perpetuating the fear mongering, you know, perpetuating dehumanization of perfectly normal people who are just trying to make a life. That's all any of us are really trying to do, you know? So here's my theory on radiation versus draining. We are each responsible for our energy. And individuals who, I used to be one like this, who want to control everything outside, have zero control over their emotional state. Emotions scare the piss out of them. They can't deal with it. They have become experts at suppressing. And therefore, rather than going in here for true wisdom, they choose to think they know everything, think that they're perfect, and they know everything better. I am this, so you should listen to me. I did this with my life, or I'm in this position of power, so you should listen to me because I said so, right? It's up to us to take our power back. And it happens on an emotional level. That's the beginning. And then we can really see what kind of effect we're having on our lives, what kind of effect we're having on other people's lives who are in our surroundings. And we can understand any ups and downs that might come with that and show those kind of roller coastery events and emotions some love and understanding and compassion, because we're all human. We all make mistakes. It doesn't have to be this whole huge crazy thing. You know, the majority of us are not going to be murderers and rapists. The majority of us make mistakes, sure. Mistakes that can be misconstrued, absolutely. But that's why it's important to get all the information, right? And rather than allowing outside forces to beat us into submission and eventually oppression, right? I think that when we tap in and we really get to know ourselves, it becomes easier for us to think for ourselves and know what we believe in. Because how many of us run around thinking we know what we believe in, but then we don't know how to defend it? We don't know how to talk about it without getting triggered. We don't know how to open conversation about it, you know, because everybody's emotions are so wrapped up in all this outside stuff. We think that the outside stuff creates the emotions, but the outside stuff is an echo. The outside stuff is a reflection. Understanding that will change your life, and it'll help you see. It'll help you see beyond the surface, you know? And in turn, that will help you to understand what it is you're radiating, what ripple effect you're bringing into the world. What are you contributing? You know, do you spread kindness, joy, smiles? You know, do you spread the idea of fun being good for you? Having fun is great for your health, by the way, you know? Or do you focus on the negative? Focus on the stuff that's there to complain about. Have a hard time keeping yourself from freaking out emotionally and taking it out on everybody around you. We all do that from time to time. It's a sign that we're not dealing with our emotions. We're not processing. So we let them kind of build up, and then they have to come out. They got to explode somewhere. The most important part is to remember not to take out your crap on other people, however that might look for you. And don't take it out on yourself either. Process it, understand it, love it, you know? On that note, I hope that you're having a beautiful, beautiful week. And I will talk to you guys in the next video. My kids just got home from school, so I'm going to say hi to them. All right. Love you guys. Mwah. Namaste.
Do you see beauty? Do you see pain? Oh, whatever you feel is what comes back again. Oh.
Thank you so much for being here, my friends. Namaste. As you remember and reconnect with the light of unconditional love within your soul, don't forget to enjoy your life and have some fun along the way. Fall into the unknown.
Fall with me into the unknown. Let's break free, learn how to let go.
Download this track and other fun bonuses when you defuse the love bomb at www.innerworkcoaching.life.